Next day they called me. I worked 6 to 2, 6 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. They called me at 5 and they said, don't bother coming in. You're done. The next day,
That's
no
crazy.
notice, nothing. And we roll up to this house and there is a car that is on fire in the driveway, driving to a job site.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw a dead deer on the side of the road.
Okay.
He took the deer and threw it on top of somebody's sheetrock. And it was just bleeding all over because he was like, I'm going to take this home and eat it.
Hey, Kevin, how are you today?
Ed, I am living the dream. I can't tell you one thing behind the scenes and then not say it in front of the scenes. So living the dream on the Friday of this recording with us together.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. So let me ask you, tell me about yourself.
Today, I am the host of a podcast. We do an episode every day. We have 1,830 episodes or something, but I am definitely not someone who started there. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. I found success at some point in life, and then I still ended up sitting on the edge of a bed contemplating suicide. So I think today the person I try to show up as is the person that I needed when I was struggling the most, and that's kind of become the mission and the purpose for why I do what I do.
Okay. Well, let's start at the basics. Where are you from originally?
I was born and raised in central Massachusetts.
Oh, wow. What part?
Just outside of Worcester. So I was born in Milford. I was raised in Uxbridge, and most people don't know where that is, but it's like an hour outside of Boston.
I know exactly what Uxbridge is. My first job out of college was we're in Uxbridge in that whole area. So
Okay, interesting.
small.
Where are you from originally?
I lived up and down the East Coast, but I was working after college. I went to school at Johnson & Wales after college.
Oh, okay, right on.
You were born there, raised by your family. Where'd you go to college?
Didn't go to college.
Okay.
I knew pretty early in life. So I was raised by my mom and my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. Nobody in my family had gone to college, so it just kind of felt like, I don't know if I want to be the one who's going to be the trailblazer doing that. So early in high school, I knew pretty quickly I didn't want to go to college, even though I was good at baseball and I was getting scouted by some baseball teams. It's just like, honestly, that's not for me. So no college for me.
Okay. So you said you were pretty good at baseball. Do you have any experiences with getting scouted and what that was like?
It was more just like getting a couple calls from colleges
Mm-hmm.
of them saying, hey, we saw that you filed an application here. I'm the baseball coach. When I was younger, I got offered to play for like a lot of different travel teams.
Mm-hmm.
But I was never really someone that had that much belief. I was good, but I just assumed I got luckier more often than other people. I didn't think I was talented by any stretch of the imagination. So I wasn't exactly going out of my way to make sure I got better, taking these opportunities and then following them. I don't know. I think I was probably more scared than anything, honestly.
Okay. So you're afraid of your own success and getting there and achieving that like success in life, in essence.
Yeah, I think I'm more afraid of the failure that comes with chasing the success. I want the success. I'm ready for that. Give me the success. But unfortunately, what came with it for most of my life, I had a very fixed mindset. I assumed if you made a mistake, it was the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I was very stuck in that cycle. So I did everything possible to avoid looking bad, and I just wanted to look good. I didn't care if I got good. I just wanted to look good, and that can only get you so far in life.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. So moving forward, what was your first job after high school, I guess?
I pumped gas at the local gas station. I was
Okay.
actually dating the manager's daughter. So that is how I got my foot in the door, so to speak. And yeah, that was my first real big boy job. I think I did that for 3 years, and I ended up kind of being the foreman, I guess, for lack of better phrasing. So I would train people. I knew how to do stuff that other people didn't do. So I learned a lot in that job, a lot of customer service,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was responsible for talking to people pretty much all day. This was back in whatever year, 2008. There weren't as many debit cards and credit cards. So I was carrying around wads of cash, just thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on a daily basis. So that was a responsibility that I never thought I was going to have. So yeah, I definitely grew there, although I knew it wasn't my forever thing.
So two questions I'll roll over that. First one is, what was it like interviewing your girlfriend's dad for the job?
It was actually my girlfriend's mom.
Oh, wow.
And there was no interview. It was just, hey, I need a job, and she said, yeah, I can get you one. It was We got along really well.
Okay.
I was really tight with the family, but there was no interview. If
Hmm.
anything, it was probably less professional than it should have been, if I'm being honest.
That's fair. That's fair. In reference, second question was, you carried around that much cash. Did anyone ever try to mug you or try to take that cash from you?
No, I at the time was also training to be a professional fighter.
Hmm.
So there's a piece of me that probably wanted that to happen so I could test my newfound skills. But that never happened to me. I do think it happened later, years down the road to the same gas station, but it never happened to me, no.
Okay, you got fortunate there. So that was your first job. You spun into your second job after that, I guess 3 years after. What were you doing moving forward?
I when I was working at the gas station, I thought it was the right thing to do to tell my boss that I was trying to take the personal training certification test.
Hmm. Of
I think that's good employee stuff. Like, I'm going to tell you that I'm
course.
trying to do this. They fired me the next day after I told him that. So I lost my job. And then I went and got a job at a hospital. I worked overnights cleaning
Mhm.
bathrooms, floors, housekeeping, essentially, was my second job.
Okay. So like, you got fired from the gas station or did you get fired from?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you told the gas station I'm going to be a personal trainer. They're like, all right, you're out. Bye.
Yep. Next day they called me. I worked 6 to 2, 6 in the morning till
Mhm.
2 in the afternoon. They called me at 5 and they said, "Don't bother coming in. You're done." The next day,
That's
no
crazy.
notice, nothing.
Yeah, that's absolutely nuts because you're handling thousands of dollars in cash for them, and they're like, "Yeah, we just don't come back."
It
I,
was Yeah, it was bad. It was
yeah,
bad.
very bizarre. Were you still dating the girl at that time, or was that relationship over?
That relationship was over, and they were under new management.
Oh, gotcha.
So right when it went from old management to new management, there was already kind of
Yeah.
everything. I lost my benefits. Everything went down, and so it was probably a blessing in disguise, honestly.
Okay. So, while you, how long did it take for you to get your certification in personal training?
I was procrastinating pretty heavily. So I think it's from the time you purchase it, I think you have 3 months to do it.
Hmm.
And I think it probably took me all of the 3 months to actually, however long it was, it might have been 3 months or 6 months. Because again, the theme in my life was I was so afraid that I was going to fail the test that I didn't want to do it. I kept procrastinating. I kept procrastinating. So it probably took me 6 months before I actually got it. And then it probably took me another at least 6 months before I actually did something with the certification.
Okay. So, in that time for the 6 months, like after you got the certification, you're still working at the hospital, like sweeping floors and stuff.
Yep.
What was the epiphany moment where you're like, okay, I took all this time and did all this work to study and got the exam. I got to use this.
I I was sick of being looked down on.
Okay.
I remember the nurse, not everybody, but a lot of the nurses and a lot of the doctors, they just treated us all like garbage. It was just, okay, we're the housekeepers and you're the doctors, so you can walk all over us and not be nice to us. And I couldn't deal with that anymore. That was one piece. The other one was I was working overnights, and that was brutal for a however old I was, early 20s,
Hmm.
trying to have a dating life and trying to spend time with friends. It just, that was really, really challenging. So I think it was kind of a mixture of all those things. And I was calling out all the time. I was like calling out and going to Bruins games all the time,
Hmm.
weekly. So I was just sick of it. I was just sick of that schedule. I think it was a mixture of all those things. And then I still had the job while I was looking for another job, which was very, we'll learn to know, is very rare for me to actually have a job while looking for another one.
Hmm.
So I ended up getting a very good opportunity at a private gym. And it
Okay.
just financially, it just made sense to go from, I think I was making $11 an hour. And then when I went to be a personal trainer, I think it was like $27 an hour or something.
So you basically doubled your income overnight.
Yeah, made sense financially to do it.
So when you joined the gym, did you instantaneously get people to work with, or did you have to find those people?
So the way this gym was set up was it was a private boutique gym.
Mm-hmm.
It was not public. You couldn't come in. You couldn't just work out off the street. You had to be attached to a personal trainer. You
Mm-hmm.
had to be on the schedule, and it was thousands and thousands of dollars. So luckily, when I signed up, there was already demand.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my first few clients. I was working however many hours a week. So yeah, it was nice. I transitioned into a nice position. Only downside, which I
Yep.
didn't think would be one, is when I signed for the job, they said, if you do not stay with us for a year or more,
Mm-hmm.
you have to pay us $1,000 because that's what it's considered when we train you. It costs us $1,000 to train you.
Wow. So did you stick for around for a year? Or
No, no, no. I learned pretty quickly, Ed, that I didn't think I was good at sales.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I want to do is, in order to sell a package, is say, Ed, I know you have grandkids, and the way things are trending, you're not going to be around to see your grandkids if we don't start taking our health a little bit more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
It would be different if that was true, but it wasn't true for all these clients. That wasn't the case. So I learned pretty quickly that I was bad at sales, and my pay got cut. So that was stage one. I went from however much I was making. I think I took like an $8 an hour pay cut or something.
So you're like $28 to like $19 to $20 range.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like over the course of 3 months or less, or how long was it?
3 months probably.
Okay, so the first 90 days, you were getting full. They're like, hey, you're not really great at sales.
Yeah.
And like then it's like, okay, we're gonna dip you down. At what point did you sort of say, all right, deuces, I'm out?
6 months in.
6 months. You gave it another 3 months. Is there
Yeah.
any stories where like um overall that were kind of crazy while you were there with like coworkers, people you're work training with, your boss?
No, it was my bosses were very guarded. It was a very weird energy. Like when the
Okay.
bosses came in, everybody sat up, straightened up. It was very heavy. There was a very heavy energy there.
Mm-hmm.
All the clients were awesome. They were just good people. They were doing really well in life, but they were really good people. I think the best story I would have is at this point, I'm in my early 20s. I don't know exactly how old I was,
Yeah, yeah.
but I was at the stage where you go out Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. So it was heavy. It was heavy times. So my friends and I went out on a Friday night, and I worked Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up, went to shower,
Mm-hmm.
was still drunk from the night before. I fell back asleep, woke up again, and tried to shower. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize I had already gotten up, and my mom wouldn't let me go because I still lived with my family. My mom would not let me go to work. She said, Kev, you're still drunk. Like, you cannot go to work. So I had to call in. Then there was a meeting that I had with them because they thought I had a drinking problem, because they said, well, you call in a lot or you're late a lot. And it was like, that's not true. So that was kind of the beginning of the end for me, because they thought I was a closet alcoholic and I wasn't. And they thought I was making excuses, and I just didn't have a great relationship with ownership.
Okay. So you were drinking Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. That's
Maybe I
like
did have a little bit of a drinking problem.
my question to you is like because I was in a lifestyle as well when I was in Rhode Island, where it was sort of like Thursday night to like Saturday night, you go out, have a good night.
Yeah.
Sometimes Wednesday there'd be a house party, you cut loose. Because it was a young city where you had like so many universities, everyone would be getting together and it'd be like, hey, this is great, let's go here. Then you got this thing, let's go to this place. And next thing you know, it's like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. Uh, so what's your definition of a alcoholic versus a non-alcoholic
It's a,
from your
it's a,
perspective?
yeah, it's a great question. Probably somebody is going to paint me in a very negative light. Probably somebody who their habit dictates the way they live their life.
Okay.
And it would seem that way at that point, but it was more, I don't know. I think for the first time ever, I felt like I was getting significance from going out and meeting people.
Mm-hmm.
Is infantile and immature as it might sound, there's something about going to the bar and all the bartenders knowing you, and you get special treatment, and you get to the front of the line, and you know the bouncers, and you're
Mm-hmm.
friends with everybody. I just think for the first time ever, I kind of felt like I was popular. And I
Gotcha.
just wanted to let that train roll. It was never I need a drink, or honestly, I didn't really like going out. The
Mhm.
reason I drank so much is if we were going out, I was going to be drinking. I don't like bars. I have, believe it or not, probably a fair amount of social anxiety. So if I'm going to do it, I got to be pretty drunk to do it. So those didn't really mix too well.
And you got to have your people with you. You're not going to
Of
just
course,
to a bar alone.
never, 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 never.
Okay.
No.
Interesting. Um, so moving forward, you
Mm.
have that conversation with your leadership, and they basically say, "Hey, we think something's wrong." Did you depart, or do they say, "Hey, you got to depart"?
I departed shortly thereafter. I
Okay.
remember I had a conversation with, there was a husband and wife in leadership positions. And I think it was with the wife. And I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Like, this isn't for me.
Hmm.
I signed up to be a personal trainer. I did not sign up to be a salesman.
Gotcha.
That's not what I'm in here for. And she said, well, just a friendly reminder, if you leave before your 1 year contract is up, you have to pay us $1,000. And I said, cash, check, how do you want it? You tell me how you want it, I'll give it to you. I'm out of here.
Hmm.
So that was essentially my 2 weeks notice. I worked the 2 weeks, and then that was it. I was off in the wind.
Gotcha. Did they deduct some of the $1,000 off your last 2 weeks, or did you just straight like you got paid, then you paid them back 1,000?
I believe I got paid, and then I paid him back 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, did you feel like their training course was worth $1,000?
Not a chance. No,
Okay.
no, no, no. I just think they do that because, yeah, they're putting resources into you, but I had been exercising for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years at that point. So I knew my fitness pretty well. I was in really good shape. I had customer service as a gas station attendant, so I thought I was ready for that job. But no, it wasn't worth $1,000. No way.
Okay. So they didn't give you like a lot of heavy sales training. They were just sort of like,
Yeah,
What? Okay. What do they train you to do?
it was very much. It was kind of like, nothing against anybody who values this, but it was kind of like Grant Cardone sales training. Like, find the problem,
Hmm.
accelerate the problem, magnify the problem, and then create the solutions. Like, no, I understand, but I don't want to lie to these people. It was hinging on misaligned sales tactics for me. I'm the chief sales officer today
Hmm.
at our business.
Of course. Yeah.
That's not how I do it. I want to have conversations with people and solve problems, but not in that way. So, yeah, I think it was just that. It was, you have to make these people feel bad in order for them to make a different decision. That was kind of the training in a nutshell. Outside of that, very little of it was about exercise and nutrition. I used to train one of the wife in the business relationship. I used to train her on a weekly basis. So it wasn't
Hmm.
an issue of lack of understanding of exercise science. It was mostly sales.
Okay. So they didn't really go through anything like, hey, this is the preferred methodology we have for workout first this way, warm up, cool down, sell
Not
these
really.
supplements or whatever.
No, no, no supplements. No, no.
Okay.
It was very simple. It was like, but in the beginning, you're like, yeah. I mean, I feel like I have a really cool opportunity here. $1,000. That's not going to matter. I'm going to be here for a year, of
Hmm.
course.
Yeah.
Not in my case. No.
Did a lot of other people leave between the 6 months you were there and you had left, or was it you were the outlier in a way?
I think I was the outlier, Ed. The other thing too is, so I didn't have the sleeve. I have a sleeve tattoo on one arm, but
Hmm.
I have a tattoo that says never quit.
Yeah.
I had to either wear a long sleeve shirt
Hmm.
or wear a sweatband
Okay.
because you weren't allowed to have tattoos because it was unprofessional. I feel like that's an inspirational tattoo. It's not like I have a marijuana plant, nothing against marijuana, but you know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's not like I had
Yeah,
something like
100%.
that.
Yeah, definitely.
So
That is very meaningful and impactful. So moving forward, you left there, you paid $1,000, and you're like, deuces, I'm out. Where did you go next?
I went to Newport, Rhode Island for a weekend with one of my friends.
Beautiful city, by the way.
It
Continue.
was, yeah, it was wonderful. And we just partied for a weekend because it was just like, I don't what am I going to do with my life? Came home,
Hmm.
and then I ended up reaching out to my uncle, who was the logistics manager for a building supply company.
Okay.
So I ended up being a forklift operator. And then with that, I had the opportunity to drive a truck and do some deliveries as well. So then I became a forklift operator and truck driver.
Okay. So, how long did you do that for?
Whew. Probably like a year and a half, I think.
Okay. So you did it a bit a year and a half. Were you still doing the personal training on the side, or was that just like you shelved that and said, I'm not doing that anymore?
Shelved. Yeah, shelved it.
Okay. Did you ever circle back down around to this personal training, or was it never something you went back to?
In the future, I used some of the skills that I had acquired when we started building our business. Yeah.
Okay. So going back to 18 months, you were driving around forklifts and trucks. Did you have any interesting stories when you were
Oh
doing that?
God. I mean, I worked with a guy. He was a really nice guy, but he was definitely a little all over the place.
Okay.
So we would deliver sheetrock.
Yeah.
Right? If you ever seen a big truck hurtling down the highway with just stacks of sheetrock and it has a
Yes.
boom on the top, that
Yeah.
that's what we did. There was one time where this guy was driving to a job site
Hmm.
and he saw a dead deer on the side of the road.
Really? Okay.
He took the deer and threw it on top of somebody's sheetrock, and it was just bleeding all over because he was like, I'm going to take this home and eat it. And that is just the type of human that he was. He was just a reckless individual. And there was a lot. I mean, it was all male. So there was a lot of ego. There was a lot of toxicity. There was a lot of that. What else? Man, I probably have so many. That's probably the best one I can remember.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the best one I can remember. But there was just a lot of characters. There was just imagine broing out with a bunch of people you like on your walkie-talkies while you're driving around all day. There's just nobody's looking over your shoulder. Nobody knows what you're doing. There's a lot of messing around happening.
Okay. So just like you're like almost like a little fraternity,
Kind of, yeah.
or just truck drivers. Interesting stuff. Okay. So you did that for 18 months. What did you roll into after you're like, I'm gonna walk away from truck driving?
It wasn't. I didn't walk away, I guess. So one of the kids I worked with, one of the guys I worked with, he was older than me. His name was Lance. Him and I were buddies. We actually hung out outside of work. He was a good dude. He was a good dude. And I was like, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't my thing. And he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I've always wanted to be a firefighter. I feel like that'd be cool. Like that's noble. There's some why. There's some purpose to that. I want to do that.
Mhm.
And he said, well, you got to go down to the town headquarters, go to the fire station and see if they're doing any on-call firefighter training. And I was like, is it that easy? That's all you do? And he's like, I don't know. Yeah, go check it out. So I went down to the fire station. I said, hey, I'd love to do an on-call fire position. Is that something I can do? And they said, coincidentally, we're actually sending people out to the next round of on-call volunteer firefighter training. Okay, cool. What does that look like? Classes are Monday night, Wednesday night, and Saturday morning
Mm-hmm.
in, I don't remember where it was, somewhere in Western Mass. So I went to my boss and I said, hey, can I get out of work early Monday, Wednesday, and I can't work Saturdays? And they essentially laughed at me. They're like, no, you can't. And I was like, all right, well, I quit. I'm going to go do this firefighting thing. And then they laughed at me. They said, you're just going to quit without another job? And I said, it's not my first time. This is kind of the way my life has unfolded. And I don't know, am I ever going to get an opportunity to do this firefighting thing again? I mean, I'm in my early 20s. I'm in really good shape. I feel like this is the time for me to try this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I quit. I think I gave my 2 weeks, I'm sure. And then I proceeded to go to the on-call fire academy. That was the next thing I did.
Okay. What was it like being in fire academy?
Terrifying.
Really?
Yeah, it was terrifying. Just because the seriousness of it,
Mm-hmm.
just knowing that this isn't like food class where you're going to learn about how to make a souffle and you can just Google it later. You don't have to pay attention. This is, if you mess this up, things could and most likely will go horribly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Saturdays, we had practical day, which meant you're using fire extinguishers. One of the things that stands out the most to me was one of our practicals was you go into a dark room with a bunch of other people. The room is pitch black and you have something over your face so you can't see anything, over your mask.
Mm-hmm.
One of the instructors takes your your breathing apparatus, and they tie it up and they disconnect everything. And in the dark, within a certain amount of time, you have to find it, put it back together, and get on air. And it
Mhm.
was one of the most stressful things ever of all time. So it was a really good growing opportunity for me because I was so far outside of my comfort zone and I had never done almost any of that before. So it was a really good learning opportunity and a really good growth opportunity for me for sure.
So, did you at any point in time feel like you like made a massive mistake? You're so terrified. You're like, I should have stayed truck driving. Like this is
No, because again, the universe works in weird ways. When I first started the fire academy, one of the guys from my town,
Mhm.
who is a giant tattooed lead singer of a metal band, but the nicest dude you'll ever meet in your entire life, he said, "Hey, do you have a job?" And I said, "No, I just quit it. I quit it so I could do this." And he said, "Do you know anything about construction or flipping houses?" And I said, "Not really." And he said, "Well, I am a contractor. We are flipping a house. Do you want to work for us? And you can do some of the simple stuff. You can paint, you can whatever, do this stuff." And I
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, yeah, sure, I'm in." So he said, "All right, cool. We'll pay you $15 an hour for
Okay.
40 hours a week, even if you only work 10."
Mhm.
And that became my gig, which got me through the fire academy. So I was making $600 a week under the table,
Mhm.
no matter how many hours I worked. I knew I was never going to be late because the guy I was working with was in the academy with me.
Mhm.
So it actually worked. Yeah, it worked out really, really, really well.
So, how did you strike up that friendship?
I just think it was the understanding that we're going to be spending a lot of time together. We're together 3 days a week. We're driving from Uxbridge to Western Mass, which is 45 minutes.
Yep.
So an hour and a half in the car 3 times a week. It was that. We bonded on tattoos.
Mhm.
We bonded on martial arts. So I think it was just a mixture of all those things. And he was just an easy guy to get along with, good sense of humor. So I think it was just that. I think you kind of know when you meet someone, it's like, yeah, we vibe or we don't vibe. I think we just recognized that we had similar energy and it kind of went from there.
Okay. Where was your drinking at this point in time? Were you still going out multiple nights a week, or did that taper off?
Oh, at this point, no, at this point, I was in the gym pretty much 7 days a week. Not, I was in a pretty serious relationship at the time. So no, I don't think I was going out almost at all at this point.
Okay. That serious relationship, did that person turn into your spouse, or is that just one of many?
No. Uh, I wouldn't say one of many. I'm a serial monogamist in terms of long term. So
Okay.
I've had, at that point, I had already had one relationship that I think was 5.5 years.
Mhm.
This relationship, I think, ended up being 3.5. It just, yeah, we ended up in different places in life and it just didn't. We were trauma bonded. When we came together, we were both coming out of our own nightmares and it just made sense to have somebody in the new dream with you. So
Okay.
I don't think it was something that was ever going to last. It was for a season more than anything.
Okay, so you gotcha. Um, so you worked with this gentleman that
Mhm.
you're going to academy with. I assume you graduated the academy. Did you graduate?
I did. It took me twice though.
Okay.
Took me 2 times. The written tests, awesome. I'm your guy. I can hammer those. So you have to pass the written test, and then you have to pass a practical test, and then you have to practice. Then you have to pass a live fire training.
Mm-hmm.
Pass the written. I failed the first practical because I just blacked out. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I out of body experience. I don't know what's happening. Went back, took it, passed it, and then I went and took the live fire training and passed it. So yeah, I ended up passing everything.
So you took the test twice, or did you have to take the academy twice?
Just the test, the second practical. Sorry, the first practical test.
Okay. So you get your certification that you're a firefighter now.
Yep.
I'm assuming you're working in Uxbridge.
Yep.
And what was it like being a firefighter in Uxbridge?
you're Ed, you're going to see a pattern here of how my life has evolved. So at this point, I am completely jobless, no job. You get your pager, right? I'm an
Mhm.
on-call firefighter. Cool, we're ready to go. I get my pager, and I think the first week I had my pager, I was sleeping, and the pager goes off at 2 or 3 in the morning. Okay, this is real. This is happening. Here we go. Hop in my car. I lived like 2 minutes from the station, so boom, hop in my car. I'm there. Got my gear on. Everything's ready to roll. We're getting on the engine. We're rolling out. And we roll up to this house, and there is a car that is on fire in the driveway. And we hop out, and the captain yelled something to me. I don't know what it was. Kevin attached the 2.5 to the outlet or something. And Ed, I just looked at him like a deer in headlights. I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. And it goes back to the fact that in the academy, I was so far outside of my comfort zone that I never asked questions when I had them, ever. Mm-hmm. And we would do a lot of live practical stuff. If I wasn't forced to do it, I was so nervous about looking bad, going back to what we talked about, that I'd say, no, I get it. I understand. I didn't understand. So I learned in this moment, standing in front of this person's house, that you either get the feedback along the way, mm-hmm. or you get it all at once at the end. Yeah. And I had no idea what I was doing, and it was very clear and abundant to me that I had made a giant mistake. Shortly thereafter that, I got kind of a job opportunity, and then I ended up leaving the fire department to pursue this new job.
So they were like kind of testing you out on that go item for the fire. You kind of didn't do well. What was the job opportunity they kind of offered you after seeing you like kind of blank out there?
So it wasn't them that offered me the opportunity. It was somebody else. And I did bad. This wasn't a test. This was real life. If somebody was in the house, this would have been a very negative thing for me, for sure. And that person, most likely. My girlfriend at the time, one of her family members worked in Framingham. You know where Framingham is?
Yeah, I do.
And they had like a job fair coming up. And the job fair was for people who are looking for work. And I was looking for work. So I went to this job fair, and I signed up for some class called weatherization. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but you're working with your hands. I can work with my hands. Let's do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So I do this class. I think it was like 5 days or something. And you just learn a new trade. You learn a new skill. Mm-hmm. We get to the end, and I go meet the head of this job fair. And she said, what do you think? How'd you do? And I said, yeah, it was awesome. I learned a lot. Thank you so much for having me. She said, so we actually have a really good opportunity. Your personality is great. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Cool. I didn't know that was going to be a benefit. We want to connect you with this really big company. And there's only a couple downsides. It's like, of course there is. There's always a downside.
Yeah, there's always the catch. Yeah.
There's always something. They said, so the upside is you'll be starting relatively soon, and you'll be making anywhere from $40 to $60 an hour. And I said,
great. Yeah, let's go.
Well, what's the catch? Let's talk about the catch. And they said the only downside is you're going to have to travel a lot. And I said, well, what does that mean? They said, well, the office is in Boston. And right when they said that, I was like, there's no way this is going to work. And they said, look, we'll connect you with the head, the boss, the owner. You can have a conversation and see what happens. And I was like, all right, whatever. So I think I talked to the boss, but he was like, we're not going to have work for a couple months, so I'll reach out to you when it's time. It's like, okay, this isn't going to happen. I was at the movies one day, got a call from my boss. He said, hey, come in for an interview. Like, all right, my potential boss. I go, I have my finest khakis and my finest polo shirt on that I have at the time. Yep. I go to the office, and he asked me to move a bunch of stuff, so I'm getting covered in dirt and all this. I thought we were going to be sitting down in the office. And he said, I feel like you're a really good fit here. You have a great personality. It's very clear that you have work ethic. I want to push you to the top of the list. There's some other people that have been waiting, but I think you're a better fit.
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
Right? I was like, awesome, cool. Yeah. All right, when do we start? He said, we'll probably be leaving in a couple of weeks. I'll give you details. I'm like, all right. So the first job I ever worked with this company, I got in a vehicle with a man that I had met one time. Mm-hmm. We drove from Boston, Massachusetts to Wilmington, Delaware.
That's a good drive.
Yeah, it was and he liked book on tape. So for me, I was getting introduced to a lot of book on tape at that point. I moved into a house with 7 other people that I had never met before, because we had a big Airbnb that we rented while we were down there.
Yep.
And then I proceeded to wake up the next day and go to a job and learn and do something I had never done before. So the skills that I learned were for residential weatherization. if you've ever had somebody come to your house and they blow insulation in your wall, or they go up in your attic and they seal holes, that's kind of the residential weatherization. We're working in giant schools, fire stations, police stations. It's
Yeah.
completely different than what I learned. So I work the first week. The first week, I legitimately only had enough money to get. I got breakfast. I got bread, deli meat, and chips. That's what I ate. I ate that every day for every meal for the first week. Then after the first week, when I got my first check, I remember looking at it and I said, "There's no way. There is no way this is real." So I got $10 less than everybody else an hour because I was
Okay.
on probation.
Yeah.
I think the first week, I think I worked 38 hours at $50 an hour. And when I saw my
Okay.
check, Ed, I was hooked. I was like, "There's no way this is real."
Like steak
And
dinner, baby. Let's
that
go.
was it. I was in. I was in. And
Yeah.
the level of responsibility, I had worked there for 2 weeks.
Hmm.
They gave me the keys to a vehicle and they said, "Yeah, if you want to drive up to Massachusetts, do your thing. Here's the gas card. You're good to go." I drove from Wilmington, Delaware to Massachusetts by myself 2 weeks after starting there in a company vehicle. And they were just like, "Yeah, you're good. Don't worry about it." And it was just the level of responsibility was awesome. I really, really enjoyed that. So that became the next venture in my life.
How long did you do that for?
I think I did that for 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I did that for 4 years. It
You're
was,
doing the same thing all the time, or is it mixing up or like, hey, do this, do that, do whatever?
there was probably like 5 different things that we did. Like we'd work on windows and there'd be a certain protocol. We work on doors, we work in attics
Hmm.
above the ceiling. So we probably did 5 to 7 different things for a scope of work. So it always, and the buildings were always different. And I worked in New Jersey, I worked in Delaware, Connecticut, Virginia, New
Hmm.
York, Rhode Island. I worked at Brown University. We did some work for Brown University.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, it was cool. There was a lot of travel, which I enjoyed because I felt like I was accomplishing something. So it was
Hmm.
always a new hotel. I was working out a ton, so a new gym, new restaurants. Yeah.
That's cool. So was there a lot of similar folks you worked with, or was it the kind of rotating wheel with different people you were working with over the course of those 4 years?
The the core was essentially the same. The thing that I always really enjoyed about the leadership at that time is they were very big on hiring people that just didn't, they got overlooked at a lot of other opportunities.
Hmm.
So that was the first time that I had worked with people of different ethnicities. Small town, predominantly white. Now I'm working with people from Jamaica and people from all over the world, and that was really, really cool for me. I got so many unique experiences from that. That really expanded my eyes and my reach a lot.
Okay. So why did you depart from doing that? It sounded like a pretty good gig.
So, man, I at that stage I'd probably been doing it, or so at the stage that I started to have issues, I had probably been doing it for 2 years. From the outside looking in, I was living the dream.
Hmm.
At that time, my girlfriend was a model. I had this high paying job. I was getting ready to compete in a bodybuilding show, so I was quite literally in the best shape of my life.
Hmm.
Sports car, everything, all the stuff. But it was at this stage where I really started to recognize that my mental health was not in a good spot.
And how could you recognize that so quickly in your, or what happened that you can recognize that?
One, I remember I was home alone one day and I just remember thinking to myself, if this is what life is, I don't want to do it. I wasn't planning suicide or anything,
Uh-huh.
but it was just like this. I've achieved a lot of what I thought I wanted to achieve, but I still feel extremely empty and I feel directionless. And I just thought it would be more exciting than this. I thought there
Hmm.
was like something on the other side of this. That was one piece. The second piece is when I did my bodybuilding show, I don't know if depressed is even an accurate depiction of how low I was. I was a shell of a human.
How so? What do you mean? How can you describe that?
I didn't want to leave the house. I sat in the dark. I didn't want to be around people.
Hmm.
I was so needing certainty that I wouldn't go out to eat. I couldn't do anything if it wasn't planned out step by step by step by step by step. I just couldn't do it. It was like, I don't know how to do it. That it was just that. And I was just, my hormones were messed up because I wasn't eating enough. I was still traveling all over the place for work. So it was just brutal. I used to bring my hot plate and I would cook salmon in the hotel room when I was eating, if I was eating fish. And it was just, there was just too much going on. So I think it was that more than anything. So my girlfriend ended up leaving me because I was just, it's very hard to pour into someone else when you can barely pour into yourself.
Yeah.
And she did the right thing. I know it might sound selfish or it might sound hard. Like, she did the right thing. She did what was right for her. But the thing that really, it broke me is she said, I would have left you a couple months ago during your bodybuilding thing, but I thought you might kill yourself. It's like, how did I let it get this far? Like, how did it get this far? So she left. That was my initial rock bottom. Just who could ever love this version of Kev? I'm broken. Work got slow. My bills just doubled because we were splitting all of our bills. My landlord came to me and said, hey, I'm going to take your ex-girlfriend to court. And I said, why? He said, because her name's on the lease. And if you miss rent, I'm taking her to court. And I said, that's not going to happen. I guarantee you it's not going to happen. So I thought to myself, if I make a ton of money, more money than I've ever made, that's going to take all these problems away. So that next year, I got a promotion. Now I'm a foreman.
Okay.
So I ran the biggest job in the company's history. It was 100 and something buildings in Virginia.
Gotcha.
So I'm all over the place. I'm in Virginia for 3 months. I'm just all over the place. Fast forward to the end of that year, I lived on the road for 10 months out of the year. And I was only home 1 day a week. But I wanted to make as much money as possible, and that's what I was doing. Opened my final pay stub of the year, and I made $100,000 at 26.
Nice.
And I remember nothing changed internally. I was still depressed. I was still anxious. I was still insecure. Yeah, I had money in the bank, and there's definitely circumstantially, there's value to that. But I felt terrible. I felt terrible about myself. I realized that for most of my life, this was the self-awareness pivot for me. For most of my life, I lived unconsciously. I have no idea why I'm doing any of the things I'm doing. You could see it in my story. I quit a job, go start another one. I don't like that. I'll go do something else. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. That became a thought. I want to be hyperconscious of everything that I do.
Yeah.
Right around that time, coincidentally, one of my friends who had a YouTube channel wanted to interview me on fitness. I was like, whatever, we'll see what happens. I don't know how well this is going to go. It went really well. An hour and a half felt like 5 minutes. And I said, imagine if you could talk about something you loved for a living. Yeah. That would be everything. And one of my buddies said, you can. And I was like, interesting. So I started a podcast in 2017 called the Hyperconscious Podcast. That's where this whole thing started. I fell in love with podcasting. But as you know, Ed, in the beginning, there's not a line of people out the door saying, how much money do you need to do this? How much? Yep. What's the amount? So I had to keep traveling. I was more depressed. I was more anxious. I was homesick. But now it felt like I was actually missing out on something that I wanted to do. So I started calling out of work. I started leaving the job sites early, showing up late. And eventually it got to the point where I woke up in New Jersey, getting ready for work that day. Alarm clock went off, slid to the edge of the bed. And that was the morning where I was thinking to myself, I don't think I can do any of this anymore. If I just take my life, I'll take my problems with me. And I think this is kind of it. I think I've made it as far as I want to go doing life.
What year was that? 2016, 2015?
2017.
2017. So you started your podcast.
Yeah.
In 2015. You did it for 2 years.
No, I started in 2017.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
2017, you started a podcast.
Yeah.
So why did you turn the corner in reference to saying, like, I'm not going to end my life Uh, was it like family, girlfriend, literally the podcast? What was the instigating item that was like, no?
I reached out to my buddy who I was the guest on his podcast. He was the first guest on my podcast. He was a mentor. He was kind of coaching me without me knowing he was coaching me. So I reached out to him,
Mm-hmm.
kind of explained what was going on, and he said many things. But the thing I remember was over the last couple of years, your awareness has changed a ton, but your environments have remained the same.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Uh, yeah, yeah. Um, so when you started the podcast, like most podcasts are not revenue generating for a period of time until you get to like the metrics that YouTube wants or someone else wants, or you get like a sponsorship. How did you manage to like make your podcast start being revenue generating? How long did it take for you?
It took 2 years before
Okay.
we ever made any money. At that point, I was like $30,000 in credit card debt. I'd been
Hmm.
sent to collections because I couldn't pay my insurance. I couldn't buy Christmas presents for my girlfriend, now wife. So we
Hmm.
were in a rough spot. We started coaching. So I went to Alan, who's my business partner. I said, "Hey, man, if I don't start making some money, I'm going to die here.
Hmm.
I can't do this. I can't do this like this anymore." He said, "You should start coaching for free." And I said, "I don't know if you missed like the second part of what I said. I need to start making money." And he said, "Well, you've never coached in this aspect. I think you need it to believe in yourself, and we need to get some reps in. We need to get some reps in to prove that we can do this." So at that time, I had a really good connection with our community. I knew people personally. I'd given out my phone number. We've done
Hmm.
FaceTime calls. So I reached out to 5 people who I knew were a part of the community. And I said, "Hey, I want to test out coaching. It's totally free. I'll coach you for 2 months. Is that something you might be interested in?" And everybody said yes. It's like, all right, cool. So I coached all these people for 8 weeks.
Hmm.
And then I think at the end of the 8 weeks, I just said, "Hey, I can't do this for free because it seems like I'm actually somewhat decent at this. What do you think of $50 a call?" And everybody said yes. So I went from making $0 to $250 a week. That became the proof of concept. Alan got clients. I got more clients.
Hmm.
When I'd get to 10 clients, my price might go from $50 to $97. Cool. Then when I get to 15 clients, it might go. So that is how we monetized in the beginning. And then even to this day, we've never done ads, we've never done sponsorships, we've never done affiliates. Everything we have done through a revenue standpoint is adding value to a person through coaching products or services.
Gotcha. So, your coaching model, is it something you created on your own? Is that like where did the guts of the coaching come from?
Experience. Yeah, experience at I mean, when we started coaching, we were probably, I don't know, 150 podcast episodes in. So we had some decent guests on at that point.
Hmm.
Alan and I had so many deep conversations behind the scenes. So we started to understand in a lot of ways the issues that our community had the most and then what we could do. We had created some frameworks at that point. So most of it is just from experience, reading hundreds of books and just having deep conversations essentially for a living at that point. That
Hmm.
was really the big thing. And you asked about this earlier. There were some people that I would do fitness coaching with in the very beginning just to
Yeah.
get the ball rolling
Hmm.
because that's something I actually had a little bit of experience with in the past.
So, this coaching concept, uh, you said you have a community. The community, was it based upon the people that listen to your podcast? Was it based on people literally in your community? Where were they at?
Podcast listeners.
Okay.
Yeah, podcast listeners. Our first year we had 1,054 listens. And I
Hmm.
think we had 48,000 or something the next year. So we were growing pretty steadily, and we were really good at making sure if somebody ever reached out, we went above and beyond to make them feel truly valued. That was like the thing that has never stopped. We still do this to that day, to
Hmm.
this day, and I think that's something that helps us a ton.
Gotcha. So you're coaching, you're doing different things along that line. Um, did you at when you were suicidal and you reached out to Alan, did you go also to the hospital? Did you go like anywhere like that, or was it just like a mental snap in your mind?
At that point, I had already been to therapy.
Okay.
So I had experience with therapy, but no, it was a snap. It was a new light at the end of the tunnel that had been created.
Mm-hmm.
And then I stayed at my job for the next 2 months or 3 months, and then I left. And then my mental health got infinitely better. My depression got infinitely better when I left my job. It night and day difference. Anxiety got drastically worse, but depression essentially went away.
So you say anxiety got worse. Is the anxiety due to like having your own business and doing what you're doing now?
Just the uncertainty of I left something that I know I hate
Mm-hmm.
to pursue something that I think I love, but how do I make money? I'm running out of money very quickly. I'm very certainty driven,
Yeah.
and there was just none of that. I was always outside of my comfort zone. So that was a big piece of it, yeah.
Okay. Well, very cool. I know we have to cut this a little bit short today. But Kevin, thank you very much for coming on the show. I
Of
enjoyed
course.
this conversation. This was
Likewise.
awesome. And I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
I appreciate you as well, my friend.
Take care. This episode was made and produced by i4 Web Services. Visit i4webservices.com to learn more.